wide open, gets a chance to bounce it, and nails the three.
Jalen Brunson just ended a 53-year championship drought for the New York Knicks. He's standing on a stage in San Antonio, holding a trophy his franchise waited over half a century to touch. But the man who helped build this exact moment isn't in the building. He's sitting alone, in a car, watching it happen on a phone screen instead. Nobody in that arena even knows he's missing. To understand why, you have to go back to a gym in Pennsylvania, more than a decade earlier, and a lesson that had nothing to do with talent at all.
You're completely correct. Fast breaks is a number advantage. Right?
In September of 2014, a high school point guard from Illinois committed to Villanova University over Illinois' own flagship program. His name was Jalen Brunson, the son of a longtime NBA guard and coach. A kid who'd met Steve Nash at 9 years old and decided right then what he wanted his life to look like. He picked Villanova because of one coach in particular. He said the coach was honest, that what he told you was exactly what he meant, and that he promised to push him harder than anyone else would. That coach was Jay Wright, and when he announced the commitment, he made his own promise back. Wright called him a dynamic guard, the son of two outstanding college athletes, and said he'd bring energy and passion to the court and the classroom. At the time, it read like a routine recruiting quote. It would turn out to be an understatement. Entering his freshman season, there were real questions about whether Brunson would even crack the starting lineup. Villanova already had two established guards ahead of him, one of them a returning Conference Player of the Year. Wright started all three anyway, trusting a teenager to figure out his role inside an already crowded backcourt. He wasn't the leading scorer on that team. He finished fifth on the roster in scoring, averaging under 10 points a game. But defensively, Wright kept pulling him for late-game substitutions, swapping him out for a specialist whenever the other team's offense needed stopping. Brunson hated it. He felt like it made him look bad in front of the same scouts who were already starting to circle college gyms. Wright didn't soften the message. Everyone already saw the weakness, he told him. Hiding it wouldn't fix it. The only real option was to get better.
0.7 seconds. Villanova.
So Brunson did the unglamorous version of the work. Away from any highlight reel, in practices nobody outside the program ever saw, he rebuilt his defense from the ground up. By the end of that freshman season, Villanova beat North Carolina to win the national championship, and Brunson had gone from a bench liability to a unanimous selection on the conference's all-freshman team. Nobody outside that program understood yet what the benching had actually taught him. At the time, it just looked like a freshman getting pulled from games. 2 years later, as a junior, Brunson was better than anyone else in the country. He averaged 19 points a game, was named the consensus National Player of the Year, and led Villanova to a second national title in 3 seasons, beating Michigan by 17 points in the final. 2 championships, 1 individual trophy case that had almost nothing left to fill.
It's Pajemski with the three.
Then came the draft. One team passed on him, then another, then 28 more. Teams reached for players with thinner resumes and far less actual winning behind them, because Brunson didn't test out the way front offices wanted him to. He was listed at 6'1" but looked smaller in person. He wasn't an explosive athlete, and in a league obsessed with measurables, a national champion and player of the year was being graded like a marginal prospect. His own future teammate, Mikal Bridges, taken 10th overall that same night, watched the slide happen in real time. Years later, he still couldn't fully explain it. "I don't know what more he had to do," Bridges said. 32 players came off the board before Dallas finally selected Brunson at pick number 33, not a lottery pick, not even a late first-rounder. A second-round afterthought, taken by a team that already had a different guard running its offense. Years later, with a championship in reach, Brunson would be asked what NBA teams had actually missed about him on that night. He answered with one word: everything. For most of his first 3 seasons in Dallas, Brunson did the job a second-round pick is supposed to do. He played off the bench, behind a bigger name, contributing modest, forgettable numbers, while Luka Doncic ran the team. There was no controversy in it, no trade demand. Just quiet, patient work, the same kind of unglamorous effort Wright had once drilled into him as a freshman. Then, in the spring of 2022, Dallas opened the playoffs and immediately lost Doncic to a calf injury. No warning, no backup plan. just a franchise suddenly staring down a first-round series it wasn't built to survive without its best player. Brunson started in his place. In Game 2, with Dallas already trailing in the series, he exploded for a career-high 41 points, the fifth player in franchise history to reach 40 in a playoff game, and the first to do it without a single turnover. 2 nights later, in Game 3, he played through a bruised back so painful he spent the first half laid flat on a locker room floor, watching his teammates build a lead on a monitor above him. He came back out anyway and scored 31 more. Over those 4 games without Doncic, Brunson averaged nearly 30 points and 5 assists a night, carrying a team that had no business staying competitive. Utah's all-star guard Donovan Mitchell, who'd been torched by him for most of the series, stopped being surprised by it. "That's Jalen Brunson," Mitchell said. "He's a talented player. This wasn't a flash of luck in garbage time. This was the exact skill set scouts had once written off. Too small, not athletic enough." Translating live, in a real playoff series, with real stakes attached to every possession, Dallas advanced all the way to the Western Conference Finals that spring, further than the franchise had gone in over a decade.
How do you explain this? Because
their front office watched every second of it, and somehow, that still wasn't enough to fully change their answer. That offseason, concerned about fitting 2 undersized guards into the same defensive backcourt, Dallas chose not to lock him into a long-term deal. By the time they were ready to make a real offer, Brunson's value had already climbed past what they were willing to pay. So they let him walk. Not traded, not extended at a discount, simply allowed to leave, for nothing, after 4 seasons of evidence sitting right in front of them.
There's no maybe about it, and this is something that has become
Years
pretty
later,
clear.
the team's own former general manager would point to that exact decision, along with a since-regretted trade, as the 2 biggest personnel mistakes of his tenure in Dallas. The New York Knicks signed him instead, 4 years, $104 million. At the time, it was the first 9-figure free agent contract in NBA history, ever given to a player who had never made an all-star team. The reaction was immediate, and mostly negative. Overpaid. The panic signing, a small guard being handed franchise money by a team desperate enough to bet on hope.
Knicks are certainly going to be aggressive in trying.
Before Brunson arrived, the Knicks had won exactly 1 playoff series in 21 years. In each of his first 4 seasons wearing that jersey, they won at least 1, every single time. The team that drafted him had let him go. The scouts who doubted him on draft night had already been proven wrong once. And somehow, the same doubt found a way to reload itself. One more time, right on schedule, in a different city, wearing a different uniform. In 2024, with a much bigger payday waiting for him if he simply held out 1 more year, Brunson signed an extension anyway. 4 years, $156.5 million, a number that left roughly $113 million on the table compared to what he was projected to get if he'd waited. He did it on purpose, so the Knicks would have enough room under the league's spending rules to keep their whole roster together instead of paying 1 star at everyone else's expense.
So, I mean, I heard the
Asked
talk.
about it later, he didn't hesitate. "It would have been worth it either way," he said, "win or lose, just for the chance to try." This is the part no scouting report ever had a column for. Not size, not speed, not a number you can find on a stopwatch. Just a player who'd understood, since a benching in his freshman year, that the only thing actually his to control was his own effort, and who had just built the biggest financial decision of his career on top of that exact idea. 2 years later, that decision was put to its final test. By June of 2026,
Turnover. I also think they weren't totally
the
clear.
Knicks
on
were
if
in the
they wanted a
NBA
timeout.
Finals for the first time since 1999, facing a young, dangerous San Antonio Spurs team, built around Victor Wembanyama. New York took the first 2 games. San Antonio answered by taking Game 3. Heading into Game 4, the Knicks led the series 2-1, 2 wins away from the title. Then the Spurs nearly ended it early.
To back buckets. The Knicks still trail by 22.
San Antonio opened up a lead of 29 points, deep into the game, the kind of collapse that normally decides a series on the spot. No team, in the history of the NBA Finals, had ever erased a deficit that size, on this stage, at any point before. The Knicks started clawing anyway. 1 possession, then another. Brunson attacking again and again, refusing to let the gap grow back. The lead shrank to 20, then 10. Then it disappeared completely. With 1.2 seconds left on the clock, Brunson fired a deep three that bounced softly off the front of the rim. OG Anunoby rose above the basket and tipped it in as time expired. Final score, 107-106. The largest comeback in NBA Finals history, completed in real time, in front of a nation that had already started writing the obituary.
Puts up the three. It's good.
3 nights later, in Game 5, on the road, with the championship on the line, Brunson scored 45 points. Only 3 other players in NBA history had ever scored that many points in a game that clinched a title: Michael Jordan, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bob Pettit, now Jalen Brunson. The vote for Finals MVP wasn't close. 11 voters, 11 votes, unanimous. 53 years after their last championship, the New York Knicks were champions again, built around a point guard. 2 separate franchises had once decided wasn't quite enough. His head coach summed it up simply afterward. "He is him, man," Mike Brown said.
Your long wait has ended.
Back in that car, watching it all happen on a small screen, was the man who'd started this. Jay Wright hadn't planned to miss it. He just hadn't been able to get inside in time. And rather than fight the crowd, he stayed put and watched the ending from where he was. When reporters reached him afterward, he didn't sound surprised. He talked about how Brunson had taken every one of his so-called weaknesses and figured out how people were defending him because of them. That's the whole story, really. Not a kid who got faster, or taller, or more athletic. A kid who got benched as a freshman in a mostly empty gym and quietly decided to fix the exact thing that got him pulled. Twice, the basketball world looked at Jalen Brunson and decided he didn't have enough. Twice, he built a championship on the parts they said were missing. 2 of his old Villanova teammates, Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, were standing next to him when he lifted that trophy. Both of them shaped by the same coach, the same gym, the same unglamorous lessons. Jay Wright never got inside that arena to celebrate. He didn't need to. He'd already said what he needed to say to a 19-year-old, more than a decade before any of this happened, and then he simply waited for the rest of the world to catch up.